Hi, and welcome to another episode of Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants. I'm Jen, your holistic health coach and educator.
And I'm Dan, your herbal enthusiast. Today we're delving deep into a topic that many people find unsettling, but it's crucial for overall health. We're talking about parasites, yeasts, and fungal overgrowth. But don't worry, we got some incredible herbal solutions for you.
Yeah, so this could be a gross topic. People don't want to talk about this, but let's start by understanding what we're up against. So parasites are unwelcome guests that can reside in our intestines. They can wreak havoc on our well-being. And yeast, we think of candida. We hear a lot about candida, and fungal overgrowths can lead to numerous health issues. These are natural substances that live in our body, but when things get out of balance, they can take over.
Yes, and I saw a study recently on candida that's actually becoming resistant to our current antibiotics and antifungals. So this is where the herbs are going to come in because one thing about herbs is yeast and bacteria have a hard time becoming immune to herbs. So
Right. Yeah. Which I love using the herbals for all of these different things. So, like I said before, it's natural to have these things in our body. They all work with each other, just like we have poisonous snakes and gentle snakes in our yards. We need the poisonous snakes to help keep things in balance. And so people want to kill all the poisonous snakes, but if we killed all the poisonous snakes, we would have infestations of other things. The same thing happens in our intestines. So it's okay to have these things, but they actually will change, and transform in the system. Like when we talk about candida, so candida is a yeast, it's a single celled fungus that is a normal part of our system. When it gets out of control, when it's allowed to grow, which sometimes can happen after antibiotics. And our previous episode, we talked a lot about golden seal. So if you take too many antimicrobials over a long period of time, you're going to kill off some of the more fragile, fragile microbes that have a different type of structure. So those get killed off. And then some of these that are stronger, like candida. Candida is a pretty strong one, can kind of take over. So a lot of times after people have been on antibiotics for a long time or antimicrobials for a long time, that's when they start developing candida. The same thing can happen when you go off of these things and you don't re-inoculate the system, adding the right foods, which we'll talk about, and herbs to help grow the healthy microbes. Candida can get out of control then too. It has room to stretch, so it starts growing. But when candida grows, it starts to change shape, and it can embed in your tissues. And then it also can give off toxins that lead to inflammation. So there's a lot of ties to candida and leaky gut. And so people, they're not feeling good. They have these symptoms of an overgrowth. And what they don't realize is it's also boring into the gut lining, and it will actually eat the gut lining as well. And so we have to be really careful when we're dealing with something like a candida, or parasites and things like that. So I forgot where I was going with that. I went on a little tangent there. But maybe we should talk about some of the symptoms of an overgrowth. Um, if you have bloating and gas, I know bloating is so common.
it is.
Yeah, or diarrhea, constipation. It could be either one. Abdominal pain. Sometimes it can be burning in the esophagus. People think they have low stomach acid, which can also lead to yeast infections, but that can be it. It can be itching and burning in the anus. It can be burping after meals. Now, does it mean if you have these symptoms that you have a candida overgrowth? No. And so, medical disclaimer before I keep going, this information is for educational purposes only. We are not medical doctors. We do not diagnose. We do not treat. We do not prescribe. We educate, and we want to encourage you to continue your education. When you hear something, do a little bit more digging into the research. Don't jump on the next bandwagon. Do your research. But one of the main some of the main symptoms are like bloating and gas, but it can even be related to headaches, migraines, muscle pain, fatigue, allergy symptoms. A lot of times people think they have allergies, rashes, it could be depression, it could be memory problems. And anxiety, that can be another one that's huge. And so people think, I'm getting older, I'm starting to have memory problems. They don't realize that it could just be an overgrowth of something in the system.
Yes, because in the American system, most doctors aren't trained to look for parasites. They're taught that those are usually only in third world countries where they're living in unsanitary conditions. But it's impossible to kill all the parasites around us. I mean, if you have I love dogs and cats, but you can get parasites from them. You could eat a salad that's not been washed correctly. It could have, microorganisms on it. I mean, we're surrounded by things, so.
Right. Yeah, all of our fruits and vegetables, everything from the garden, walking around outside barefoot,
Mhm.
walking on the beach barefoot, swimming in the lake. You're exposed to all of these different things. And if you're healthy and your body is strong, it's able to fend these things off. But if you have an area of weakness, you have inflammation, you have a chronic condition, it could even just be your blood sugar is out of balance. All of those little things can affect the way your body reacts. If your body is not in balance, there's inflammation occurring somewhere in the body. Your body is reacting to that inflammation. So when we get bombarded by these other things, there's less fighters in you to help ward off other things. If you think about it, if I'm not feeling good, I have something going on in my stomach, and I also am using chemical shampoos, chemical face washes, cleaning my house. I'm getting exposed to all these different things. And then I go for a swim in the lake that it just happens to have parasites in there. I'm getting exposed to those parasites, and my body's like, wait, what am I handling? Should I handle the beer that you drank on the lake? Should I handle the coffee that you drank this morning? Should I handle the chemicals that you just used to wash your face? Any of those different things. So we're getting bombarded by all these different things. And so being exposed to a parasite isn't what's harmful. It's an accumulation of all these different things makes you more susceptible to these different things. So let's talk about some of the herbs that can help with an overgrowth.
Well, wormwood is a very good one. It's in most of our formulas. It's a very
Yes.
powerful one. I mean, wormwood, I remember talking to David about wormwood, and I said, is it harmful to take wormwood for a long time? He goes, well, his dad would tell him that you should only take wormwood for short amounts of time because it's that powerful of an herb. So,
Yeah. One of the first ones that comes to mind for me is black walnut.
yes,
So black walnut. Now I've tried making my own herbals with black walnut. I don't know if you've done that,
I haven't tried
but
that one.
it is black and everything turns black. Like I had what I thought was maybe a fungal something on my toenail. So I had a split toenail. And so I put it on there. And I think my toenail was black for a year. Like it just would not, everything stained. Your hands are stained. You definitely have to use gloves. But black walnut is my go-to actually for that. Another one that I really like that you have in your kitchen, many of you have in your kitchen, some of you maybe not, but pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are fabulous for a yeast or fungal overgrowth. As a matter of fact, we gave our dogs ground pumpkin seeds. We actually still add it to their foods. We just grind them up and just give them like a quarter teaspoon, but that helps also with yeast and fungus, and that's in your kitchen. So there's another one in our kitchen, cloves. Cloves is another one. It's in several protocols. I'm not a big fan of protocols, but there are some protocols that include a lot of clove to help with fungals. A lot of people use cloves in their mouth to help with any kind of condition going on in the mouth, but that's also a great one. What other herbs can you come to mind?
I love oregano oil. Oregano oil is really powerful
Yes.
and garlic. We can never leave out garlic. Garlic is
Yes.
good. It really is.
Garlic is king.
Yeah.
Garlic is definitely king. So anytime you can use garlic, and garlic's a food. So
Mm.
adding it to your food, same with oregano. So I prefer oregano leaf over oregano oil. If I'm working with someone who definitely has some sort of overgrowth, I like to rotate. And so we will use some oregano oil, and use some garlic oil and use these other things, but we like to, I like golden seal and Oregon grapefruit, and things like that too. But I like to rotate them because, like we have said before, if you take one, you're going to kill all of one, whatever that one aims for, and then the other ones are going to kind of overgrow. So I do like to rotate them, but I prefer to use oregano leaves instead of the oil, just because the oil is so potent. Unless somebody definitely has something, then we definitely use the oregano oil. But using oregano on a regular basis is a fabulous way. I mean, think it just adds eat some more Italian food, but we'll have to talk about foods there too, because when we think of Italian, we're usually talking about a lot of gluten, and so that can definitely go against the benefits there. But I do love oregano oil and garlic oil.
Those are great. As far as food, and we look at I mean, herbs aren't usually enough if you have a severe infection. So, what are some of the lifestyle changes in food? What kind
Mhm.
of food should we incorporate? What kind of food should we not eat during this time when we're trying to cleanse our body of parasites?
So yeast love sugar, and
Mm.
so my number one rule for anything is get rid of the dairy, get rid of the gluten. And so we're tossing those out. So no gluten, no dairy immediately. And also no added sugars. If you can get away without any added sugars, you're going to be healthy overall. But when you're dealing with an overgrowth, then you need to look at, even sometimes, depending on how extreme the overgrowth is, you have to start looking at the sugar in the foods. And so looking at low glycemic foods, Dr. Furman, he talks a lot about low glycemic foods. I like Dr. Gabriel Cousins. He has a book, Rainbow Green Life Food Cuisine. It's a lot about overgrowth. It's also a lot about different foods that are great for helping. Donna Gates, Body Ecology, that's another book that's really great on rebuilding the ecosystem, your intestinal ecosystem. And it also focuses on low glycemic foods. It's funny, everybody has a different take on which foods, but if you're eating your leafy greens, you're eating, very alkaline rich foods, lots of leafy greens. So what do I mean by that? Kale salad, sauteed spinach, sauteed bok choy, broccoli, cauliflower. Even cauliflower I consider leafy green. It's not green. But all of these, spinach, lettuces, romaine, working those into your different meals, having some green juices and green smoothies, but without all the fruit. And so that can be hard for people. Maybe eating a green soup, broccoli soup or spinach soup, or I'm making a bok choy soup today. Different things like that. When for breakfast, what do I eat if I don't have gluten? I don't have fruit. Well, making like a grain-free porridge. So low glycemic fruits can be berries and cherries. And so a lot of people will even cut those out if it's really extreme. I do still use the berries and cherries. A lot of times when you do some sort of getting rid of the candida and the yeast, it usually takes 2 cycles. And so I'll have someone try it, allowing some of the sweeter, not low glycemic fruits. I don't completely eliminate the fruits because I think they're so high in antioxidants. And so focusing on building up a good immune system while we're eating the lower glycemic fruits and vegetables, not having potatoes. If you do have potatoes, only the small new red potatoes. Eating raw carrots, not cooked carrots. Things like that can help too. Some people remove even the carrots and the beets. I think the first round, it's okay to have those to see if you can get the body in balance before you eliminate those. If you do a whole month of eating the low glycemic fruits and vegetables, low starches, um, even the low starch beans for a month, and you still have an issue, then maybe we need to cut back a little bit further. Only for a month. I'm not saying forever. Get it all under control. Rebuild the system by eating fermented foods. And when you finish after another month, making sure you're taking high quality probiotics. I like the Bifido strains. I'm eating homemade kefir, homemade sauerkraut, homemade kimchi, homemade yogurts with the good quality probiotics and helping rebuild that system. Dr. Christopher has a couple of different herbs and herb formulas that are great. I like intestinal sweep, and they have a whole protocol that you can follow where you use soothing digestion formula and intestinal sweep. And that, I believe that's a 28-day program.
Yeah. It's
I
28.
believe it is, but they say no fruit.
Yeah, I know. And
Yeah,
they're
and that's
pretty, yeah, that program is like you're describing. I think it's more stringent than what I think, yeah, no fruit at all. You can have
mhm,
sprouted beans, green vegetables, and I think a few nuts, and that's pretty much,
right.
yeah. So,
Yeah, sprouted mung beans, sprouted azuki beans, sprouted lentils, and sprouted garbanzo beans. But those would be the only beans. That is really difficult to follow. When you first start on a Candida cleanse, your body screams for sugar. Candida wants sugar so bad. And so it can, the first 3-4 days can be really, really difficult. And so planning ahead, having things in your house. Number one, get rid of anything in your house that could be bad. If it's in your house, it's in your mouth. And so that's rule number one. Just note that if it's in my house, it's in my mouth. You have other family members that aren't doing this with you, then tell them they have to put those foods, they have to hide them, put them in their own room. Don't eat them in front of you until you get through. Once you get through the first 3 or 4 days, you don't even crave sugar anymore. You don't want those, but I'm just letting you know those are going to be screaming really loud. Some people get headaches while the first few days as they start to adjust, as their body starts to adjust. And one of the key things we need to talk about, which I can't believe we haven't talked about poop in several episodes, you have to be going to the bathroom.
oh
When
yeah,
you are killing these things, they need to get out of your system. Remember, I said they give off toxins. When they die, they give off mycotoxins. And so that's why you can feel bad, have headaches as well. And so even taking like a lot of pumpkin seeds, that will kill them as well too. We need to make sure the bowels are moving before you start, and we need to make sure the bowels are moving throughout the whole time. Because as they kill, like I said, as they die off, they're going to give off toxins, and you need to get them out of your body quickly. And so what do I mean by that? You should be having a bowel movement 3 times a day. That can be really extreme for some people, especially if you only go once or twice a week. Get your bowels moving first. Using something like, I'm not diagnosing, prescribing, or treating, Dr. Christopher's lower bowel formula. Dr. Schultz, he has some intestinal formulas that are really great. Drinking teas like traditional medicinals, smooth move tea, finding something that has like Cascara sagrada in it, that can be great. That's a little more soothing, not as cramping as some other formulas. Something that has maybe some ginger in it just to help with any gas or bloating that you may have. You want to make sure you're going to the bathroom 3 times a day. If you're going too much, back off. Don't take those supplements as much because you don't want to go too much, but you want to make sure that your bowels are moving. When you finish with the Candida cleanse, slowly back off of those supplements and get your body back into the system. You should be going to the bathroom really without the need of supplements when you finish this. So what I'm saying is, don't go to the store and buy a over the counter. What am I thinking of? I don't know what it's called. People take them all the time to make them go to the bathroom.
laxative.
Laxative. Don't just go and buy an off the shelf laxative.
No.
We want you to have something that's safe and an herbal that you're not going to have to rely on later on. Anyway, I didn't mean to run. I just took off.
Oh, you covered a lot of good information there, Jennifer.
So what other foods and tools do you recommend for yeast and fungal overgrowth?
Well, I mean, we had to make sure we stay hydrated. The water, because the water helps flush everything, keeps the bowels going, keeps the kidneys going. Need to be urinating to get all these things out of the body. Um, as far as foods, I mean, there's other foods that supposedly help with parasites and things. You mentioned pumpkin seeds. I've heard, I think I read somewhere artichoke hearts are good for parasites.
Hmm.
So that's another thing you could add. And I do think that, I mean, just add on to confirm what you're saying is if you have these parasites, you have to make sure that you keep your blood sugar low. And the way we're going to do that is stay with the foods like Jennifer is recommending. Stay with your vegetables, maybe a little bit of beans. You could try um, some nuts. And exercise, walking can help keep the blood sugar low. I don't know, you've said so much, it's not much to add, Jennifer. So
Well, in Donna Gates' book, so we always recommend at least half your body weight in water, which I
yeah.
love that you said hydration. That's huge. Um, and so we recommend at least half your body weight. And Donna Gates, she says 60 to 65% of your body weight in water. So even more. And like right now, while we're recording this, we're definitely in a heat wave. It's in the 90s, high humidity here. And so even more water because we need to make up for any water lost through all this heat, especially if you're outside or exercising outside or something like that. And so making sure you're staying well hydrated. But yes, making sure you're doing all your other lifestyle factors, getting plenty of sleep. When you first start something like this, you may want to do gentle exercises, walking and things like that. Because like I said, as those things start dying off, they give off the toxins, which can cause headaches and things like that. Another thing, when you're dealing with parasites specifically, with that first wave of killing off will kill the adults, but then you still have eggs and things like that. And so that's why you have to keep going. You can't just do a kill off and then go your merry way because then those eggs will hatch. Is that what, do they hatch? I guess they hatch. The babes come out and are born. That's my technical way of saying it. Anyway, you have to keep going. So you have to kill off. It's like if anyone's had to deal with lice, if you've had children that were exposed to lice, or maybe you were in school or something, they have to clean the hair and then they have to go back and clean it again because the eggs are still there, the larvae. We have to keep going. And so that's why you want to do at least 28 days. And that's why most often you have to repeat it as well. In any of Dr. Christopher's, I don't like to say protocols. Whenever we're dealing with someone with a chronic condition, someone who's been battling with anything, the first thing they recommend is to do a candida cleanse. And so I didn't know if you want to talk any more about that, but I was surprised to learn that when we were at the School of Natural Healing.
I was too. It's the first I've heard of that because we went through the whole school and they didn't mention that until we get to Utah.
Yeah,
I mean, David didn't talk about it. I don't know if David does that with all his clients, but the doctor that was there, he always did it.
right.
He always started with the cleanse and he got really good results. So apparently, if that's the case, most of us are dealing with some kind of yeast or parasite. I mean,
Yeah,
general population, of course, you're saying that the general population, they're not metabolically healthy to begin with. So it's easier if you're not well, if you're not like very healthy, it's easier for a parasite to live inside you. It's easier to pick them up because they like weaker hosts. So once you get the parasites and the yeast, you kill it, your body will start to get stronger. But I've never done that with my clients to begin with. I don't know. I've never, do you do it
mm,
with them or?
I have with a few clients. I guess I do it more with myself. Maybe it's one of those areas where I was afraid to dive in with clients, especially those that are already really sick, which is the opposite of what they were saying, because I feel like maybe is their body tough enough to handle a candida cleanse, but maybe that's exactly what's needed. So I just did a quick Google, and Google, we know, take it with a grain of salt. It's estimated around 80% of adults and children in the US have parasites.
Wow.
Yes. So it's something that I do at least once a year. I do a parasite cleanse. There's several different ones. As a matter of fact, I think I do a different kind every year. I don't know why, but there's several different, they all have the same herbs in there. They all, every time I do it, I still do eat berries and cherries. Those sweet fruits, I get rid of all the rest of them. And then I don't eat any grains. I will eat sprouted buckwheat and quinoa. Those are called pseudo grains. As a matter of fact, I haven't had any quinoa in a long time, but I don't eat the starchy grains. I'm always gluten free just because of my genetics. And then I eat all the vegetables except potatoes and beets. I don't eat those foods, but I think that I do eat most other foods. There could be some starchy vegetables I'm not thinking about that I don't eat, but I do eat, and I don't eat any beans. I will sprout mung beans. I will sprout broccoli sprouts. I will sprout adzuki beans. I'm not the biggest fan of sprouted adzuki beans. And I'm not a big fan of, I will sprout lentils too. And so I will have those, but at least once a year, I will do a candida cleanse.
Well, right now, with I'm doing the extended cleanse as we speak. You know that, but it's interesting if you look at the blood cleansing formula, it has a lot of herbs, like it has herbs in there that will actually kill parasites as well. So I
Right?
think,
Maybe we're doing it without even knowing it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, I didn't know that many people, 80%. Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So maybe it is wise to start everybody off with a parasite cleanse.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Like we said, you can get them from, improperly washed foods. A lot of people get it from meat. It's usually from meat, undercooked meat. But you can be vegan and still have parasites. It's still common in everybody. It's not just the meat eaters. And so before we close it off, let's talk about what can go wrong in your parasite cleanse. What, well, number one, what could we do wrong? I'm thinking of eating the sugar.
Oh,
I think I lost you for a second. I was thinking of
okay.
eating, if you eat the sugary foods, then you're helping them grow again. And so you're just setting yourself up for a vicious cycle. One of the things that I did wrong, one of the first times I did a candida cleanse, I did actually Dr. Christopher's with the intestinal sweep and the um, soothing digestion formula. So I did that for a whole month, and then it recommend high quality, high doses of probiotics at the end. And they were very expensive, and I decided I'm not going to spend that much money. And so I did, at the time I wasn't as familiar with probiotics. So I just did a regular over the counter probiotic, and I only did whatever it recommended on the bottle. So it was like, one capsule a day. Well, I ended up feeling worse. I don't even know if I had parasites before I started or yeast infection or anything like that before I started. But a month later, after I ended it, I was really bloated and felt awful. And it took me a while to get it back under control. And I think it's because I killed everything off, but then I didn't re-inoculate the right way. And so I just grew back the wrong things. So I think it's very, very important that you do, a lot of living foods, a lot of fermented foods, foods that naturally contain probiotics, adding things like inulin, which is a supplement, which we don't always talk about, but Jerusalem artichoke or chicory root, those contain inulin. A lot of those to help probiotics, there are prebiotics that help you produce probiotics, garlic, those things, adding those foods with a high quality probiotic. If you don't do
Yeah,
those, that
well,
it can be a problem.
yeah. And we already talked about also, say it again, if you're doing a parasite cleanse, you have to make sure your bowels are going, because that's
Yes.
another way you could really mess up and feel really bad, because if you're killing off a lot of parasites and you're not and they're not leaving the body through your bowels, that can start to make you feel really sick too and bloated, because when they die, they leave, they can cause inflammation and things in the body, so you want to get
Right.
them out. don't want a bunch of dead parasites laying around,
Yes, and if you've had a long-standing condition, you've had a lot of bloating for a long period of time, then there's a good chance that some have bored into the intestines, and so there's some leaky gut, and so doing some kind of intestinal repair as well. And eating foods and taking herbs that are mucilaginous. I'm thinking of licorice root, marshmallow root, slippery elm, aloe. Those foods to help recoat and rebuild the system as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, foods high in beta glucans, which are your mushrooms and your beans. Those are really great to add into. Anyway, do you have anything you would like to say or add before we close off this episode?
Um, I think we've covered everything. So
Yes, yeah. So thank you for joining us on another episode of Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants. Remember, your health is in your hands, and nature offers an abundance of tools to support you and your well-being. So we don't have to buy things over the counter. We don't have to get prescriptions. We can take control. We can use herbs and natural methods. There is a place for medicine, but do what you can naturally to prevent side effects and things like that. So until next time, be well and embrace the power of nature.